What's going on, my friends? PC3 here, coming at you. It's late currently on Friday night, and I am getting ready for my chance to finally play in this Players Cup. I had some unfortunate events happen with with just work being busy and some other things going on that I kind of had to put the initial couple of days on hold. Luckily, that shouldn't be a big problem, given that you have until Sunday afternoon to complete these. I would have liked to have gotten a start on it today. Tomorrow's probably going to be a big day of a lot of games for me, but this is going to be a really good start. Should hopefully be a really enjoyable experience. I'm excited. However, I wanted to touch base with you all and let you know what I ended up finalizing for a team and kind of talk through my process. Now, personally, I'm I'm very bad about this. As I said in one of my earlier videos, as most of you know, I come from a Magic the Gathering background, and before a tournament, I always start to question my deck. I always make last minute changes, and I always kind of go with things that maybe are a little unorthodox or don't always make sense, or whatever the case is. I struggle a little bit sometimes to fully dive into accepting the fact that I'm going to be playing a team that I'm going to play. My friends know this. My team building friends know this for Pokemon, that this Players Cup and last Players Cup have been a little bit of a rough factor on my confidence in my team, because I like to play with Pokemon I enjoy, but I also like to give myself the best chance of winning. I don't want to play with a Pokemon that is actually bad, but I'm blinded by the fact that I think it's good. So I like to take and sift through the really popular things, and I like to find something of the popular things that I personally enjoy. So I'm going to kind of walk through real quick here. This is going to be a shorter video because I'm going to go to bed here, and then tomorrow I'm planning on doing some streaming, potentially on my Twitch page, twitch.tv/Brezzy43. Otherwise, I will be doing some recording for sure. I'll put up as many videos as I can. I'll keep them kind of short. I'll do like a couple of games at a time, but that's what my plan is for tomorrow. So let's dive in. We're gonna start. This was obviously the first team that I built. I have a lot of them that I kind of went through here, but this was the very first team. You all are fully aware of this team. This team ended up having some issues with opposing water types, and ended up having some issues with some other things as well, that I just ended up liking. I ended up basically saying, okay, I like some things that this team provides, but I don't like other things. So I went on to basically keep the Pokemon that I liked, that I thought were good, which were these initial four. Tapu Fini and Moltres paired with Raichu was pretty nice. Incineroar was great for that too. I found out that I needed a grass type. I started to explore Kartana. I started to explore Rillaboom. I started to explore other things like that. But the problem that I found myself in here was a couple of different things. One, as I played more with this team, I began to realize that Raichu slants a bit more offensively than I was envisioning for the team. So Raichu is a great Pokemon for me. Honestly, I really enjoyed using the Pokemon, and I thought it was really good. But its ability Lightning Rod, its frail nature, its ability to fake out Volt Switch and whatever, I wouldn't say that it has to only be on an offensive team, but it definitely thrives most on a team that is a bit tailored towards offense. Like I said, we kind of had built it to have some damage mitigating factors to it. Like we had the Eerie Impulse tech. We were running Charm for a while, but it ended up just kind of feeling like I couldn't get the end game right. Raichu and Incineroar were good. Fini, Moltres were fine, but I couldn't figure out what my last two Pokemon should have been to have a powerful end game. I know that I needed a grass type that would have paired really well with I knew that I want. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. I knew that I wanted a grass type to help mitigate some of these other weaknesses, but I couldn't figure out exactly what kind of end game I wanted to play for. There were certain matchups I was struggling with. So ultimately, I ended up deciding maybe let's explore a different option. So I really enjoyed Celesteela. I thought Celesteela was a really, really good Pokemon. And I ended up leaning pretty hard. This team that I tried to build was basically designed to lean hard into Celesteela. I don't know why these are all set to level 100, but Celesteela to me is a very intriguing Pokemon. It doesn't have a great speed stat, but it's got very good stats across the board in the other categories. And if you run a modest nature with a special attack investment, you actually can snowball pretty quickly. If you if you Dynamax early, pick up some KOs, you're going to be snowballing your way through the tournament pretty quickly, or through the battle pretty quickly, assuming you get to pick up a knockout, because one knockout gives you a special attack boost, leads to another knockout, leads to another knockout.
Battery low.
Sorry about that. My headset apparently is low on battery. So I'm just gonna go ahead and shut it off quick. Sorry about this.
Powering off.
All right, I don't need it on to record here. So the thing about the Celesteela that was like I said, it was an offensively tailored Pokemon. At least I was imagining it to be. It can be built however you want it to, but I think it suited Raichu really well because Celesteela only has one weakness, or two weaknesses, but one of them is being mitigated by Raichu, and that's fire. And Celesteela can actually account for its fire weakness by running the move Meteor Beam. So that was something that I really wanted to try out here. This team just never really came together. I kept a lot of the same components I really liked. Rillaboom fit on this team nicely. The double terrains ended up not mattering as much as I thought it would in terms of conflicting synergies, because you're often bringing Celesteela or Tapu Fini to a battle. You're likely not bringing both. If you do, Tapu Fini's like part of your end game. But I was struggling a little bit with like beating some matchups. Like Trick Room was really tough. Things like Hyper Offense was pretty tricky because the Raichu is good at mitigating some of the offensive pressure from some of the lineups, but that's only when Raichu can fake out something or can outspeed something. The opposing Pokemon doing Spectre things was a little bit tough. So I kind of I moved away from Moltres at this point, and I was thinking about Celesteela. I was trying to find the best way to leverage Celesteela, and then it kind of dawned on me that Rain was a relatively unexplored archetype in the current metagame, and Rain to me felt like it might be pretty decent here. You've got a really offensive mode with Kingdra. You've got a really offensive mode with Celesteela, depending on which one's better. You can play to a Rillaboom endgame with Choice Banded Rillaboom. However, after I built this team, I actually selected the Pokemon. I started thinking about Entei instead of Incineroar, because one of the matchups that was kind of tricky was the hyper offense teams that I wanted to have. Or sorry, let me rephrase. One of the things that I was finding out was happening was that I was running into a lot of opponents that were using anti-intimidate measures. So as everyone knows here that I've talked about, two of the most popular Pokemon in the metagame are Intimidators. You have Incineroar at 39%, and you have Landorus at 22%. So there are Pokemon that have various abilities that can punish the use of Intimidate. One of them is an ability called Defiant. There's a Pokemon called Bisharp that in VGC's history has been a very prominent Defiant user. Defiant says when its stats are lowered, its attack increases. So rather than getting a dropped attack from Intimidate, it actually boosts the attack. That's one of the options. One of the other ones. Another one is actually competitive. So my Lodic is a Pokemon that often people will run in doubles as with competitive, which raises the special attack when the Pokemon stats are lowered. I think it's a 2-stage increase as well. Or maybe it's however many stats you lowered. So like Intimidate lowers by 1 stage, so maybe it's just 1-stage increase. I think that might be how it works. Obviously, you can check that in game, so I'm not as worried about it. But I was running into these teams left and right, and I wanted to explore the potential of Entei. Sorry, I have the other showdown up as well. Entei being, because Entei actually received some buffs recently. So let's take a look at Entei's stats. Good HP, good attack, good speed. These are all great. Defenses are fine. Special attack is pretty good as well. Historically, Entei is one of the only Pokemon that gets the move Sacred Fire, which is a 95% accurate, 100 power move with a 50% chance to burn the target. But historically, it struggled to use this offensively because Intimidate was everywhere. You would get intimidated, you would struggle to output damage, you'd basically just be using Sacred Fire to burn things. Now, Entei gets access to its hidden ability, Inner Focus, through the Crown Tundra DLC. This Pokemon cannot be made to flinch, it's immune to Intimidate. So, you can run Sacred Fire, and you can use Raichu Entei as sort of a means of potential damage mitigation. I know some people were exploring Entei with a Bulldoze set alongside Weakness Policy Metagross or things like that, things of that nature. And I wanted to try Entei on this team, and after I kind of put things together and I was like, okay, I really want a grass type on this team as well, I found out that this is an exact replica of a man named Juan Nar, who he did very well in the last Players' Cup. I completely blanked on this team because I didn't get a chance to watch much of the Players' Cup. I know that Wolfglick won with Colossal, but I didn't get to watch many of the games. And I started to think about how Celesteela could thrive on a rain team, and Juan Nar actually played these exact 6 Pokemon in his Players' Cup run. He ended up changing up some of the things. He ran an Assault Vest Raichu, which I found a lot of value in Eerie Impulse, which if I'm running Assault Vest, I obviously can't do. And he ran Choice Specs Offensive Politoed, which I actually found that in my experiences playing with Rain, Politoed gets access to the move Perish Song, which can be a really strong endgame if you have an offensive team like this one, as sort of a way to end the game. After you Dynamax early, you pick up a couple of quick knockouts, and then you Perish Song and stall out your opponent with Protects. And his Celesteela also was defensive. In previous generations, Celesteela was introduced in Pokemon Sun and Moon, and it was because of its typing and its stats and its ability. It actually learns Leech Seed. It's one of the few Pokemon that actually gets this move and can use it competitively. And so historically, people would run a set basically like this one, and they would be like defensively tailored. They would have a good amount of HP investment, and then something like this, and they'd be set up to get their beast boosts into their defense stat, into one of their 2 defense stats, for example. This is what Juan ended up using. Celesteela can be really difficult to take out, especially when you're removing both of its weaknesses, because it's in Rain and it's got Lightning Rod, so you're potentially removing both of its weaknesses, and only allowing it to be hit by water moves. So I tested this out for a while. I ran offensive Celesteela with Weakness Policy, and I was running Protect, Air Slash, Flash Cannon, and then Meteor Beam. And I was Modest Max Speed with some sort of a investment into HP and speed, basically. But I was finding that I was struggling with the same things I was struggling with previously, which specifically was Tapu Fini, but also my opponents potentially being able to slow play. And not slow play in a bad way, but like set up their screen defensive teams. They could often weather the storm and still have multiple Pokemon left, so my Perish Song endgame wouldn't come up very often. My general game plan with Kingdra was to try to ignore Tapu Fini as much as possible. Even if it was setting up, it was fine. I still had Rillaboom in the back, and I had Perish Song. But sometimes, like, that in reality, that just didn't really play out very well. So that was like it ended up kind of being a mistake, or not necessarily a mistake, but a flaw in team building that I couldn't really figure out and feel confident enough to bring. I loved this composition. I will probably be revisiting it at some point. But for now, this ended up not being what I was sold on. So then I got stuck. I was frustrated. I was angry. I called my friend Ben, who I team build with, and I was like, dude, I'm just going to play Sun. I played Sun back in the last Players' Cup. I did very well with it. I really enjoyed it. I've got this idea for a Sun team. I'm going to run it. So I started to piece it together here. I was going to run Chlorophyll, Venusaur, G-Max, with Torkoal for a Sunsetter, and then my other offensive mode was going to be Mimikyu and Dragapult. And the reason why Mimikyu and Dragapult appeal to me right now is that Dragapult actually is a bit of a sleeper pick right now, in my opinion, because for a couple of reasons. One, it is the second fastest Pokemon in the game, just behind Regieleki. But Regieleki can't drop its speed because it has Clear Body, so for all intents and purposes, it is the fastest Pokemon in the metagame. For like offensive purposes, like Regieleki Dynamaxes sometimes, but I feel like the vast majority of teams, they don't Dynamax Regieleki. So also Dragapult resists Regieleki, which is a feather in Dragapult's cap. Now, however, Dragapult actually, because of the nature of the Pokemon, it doesn't, even though it's a dragon type, it doesn't really play like a dragon type. It plays more like a ghost type. It plays like an offensive ghost type, kind of like how Gengar historically was played, and how other, like, Gengar is a great example of an offensive ghost type, but like Dragapult having access to a secondary stab of dragon is pretty nice. It comes up occasionally, but Tapu Fini kind of wrecks dragon types in a way. So this having access to Ghost is being really strong is a really big deal. And also, Mimikyu is one of my favorite Pokemon for a couple of different reasons. Mimikyu is a fast offensive Pokemon with good special defense, reasonable defense, and kind of low HP, but it has one of the most broken abilities in the game. Its ability is called Disguise. So Disguise says the first hit it takes is blocked, and it takes 1/8 HP damage instead. So this is a new thing. Back in Sun and Moon when this Pokemon came out, it didn't have that. Disguise was even more broken. You didn't take any damage at all from your Disguise being busted. But now you take a little bit of chip damage. And this Pokemon is one of the few Pokemon that gets access to Trick Room and Taunt. But also can be offensive. And one of the things I was doing was I was running Weakness Policy Dragapult, and I was running Shadow Sneak on, Shadow Sneak on Mimikyu. Shadow Sneak on Mimikyu to proc the Weakness Policy, get a big hit off. And if we take a look at something, so Mimikyu against Urshifu is actually, Play Rough is a guaranteed KO on Banded Urshifu without any EVs at all. That was one reason why I was interested in this. The second reason is that, as I stated, Dragapult is a very good offensive Pokemon. Usually you run Dragon Darts, Phantom Force, and Fly as your moves. And this thing can give itself Airstream boosts. It can give itself defense drops on the opponent. Very good offensive typing in general. And then Landorus rounded out this squad because you need, well, kind of rounded out. I still had a slot left. You needed a strong rock type Pokemon in order to deal with some of the things that Sun can't deal with, specifically Pokemon like Rotom Heat, bulky fire types, things like that. So I was ready to start exploring this team, potentially going with a Sun Trick Room team. And then my other friend was like, yo, dude, I think you should pause. You have this really cool idea going on with Celesteela. You should just do it. You should just you should build a team and stick with it. And the reason why we had this conversation was that Sun, in both of our opinions, was not a very good team in the metagame. People, back when I played it last time, the Crown Tundra DLC wasn't out yet. And this was far and away one of the best teams that you could run, team compositions you could run, period. Sun was very difficult to counter. It had a lot of different ways that you could play it. Venusaur often ran Sleep Powder, and you had a Trick Room setter. My last team, let me see if I remember it. It was Charizard G-Max on top of Togekiss, Tyranitar, and Dusclops. This was the team. So one of the most offensive leads you can make is Gigantamax Charizard with support Togekiss, and get some offensive damage that way. You get the chip going from G-Max Wildfire. You get the redirection with Togekiss, and you have a pretty solid late game option of Trick Room Dusclops with either Torkoal or Tyranitar. The other thing you can do is you can go for Venusaur things. And the one lead that can be super difficult to play around is Venusaur plus Dusclops. Because you can set Trick Room with Dusclops, you can Sleep Powder things, you can Gigantamax Venusaur and switch Dusclops into Torkoal and get your speed boosts going. There's a lot of things that this team could do. However, Tapu Fini kind of wrecked the Sleep Powder aspect of this team. And Tyranitar is not as good anymore because of the speed stat being a bit lackluster, and the addition of Pokemon like Glastrier severely outclassed Tyranitar in the Trick Room aspect of things. And Togekiss ran into a bit of a trouble at the beginning of the metagame. Dusclops, also with Urshifu rising in popularity, Dusclops struggled a lot as well. So this team ended up not really... this team kind of got countered with the addition of the new Pokemon in the metagame. So we were back to square one. We were back to figuring out what exactly we could end up going with that would make sense. And then I was looking on Twitter at a person's Twitter named, the account is named Liberty Note. And Liberty Note is basically the compilation of all of the Japanese teams that have been doing well in any given tournament or on their ranked ladder or anything like that. And one of the teams that caught my eye was this one here. This was, I didn't get a chance to see the actual PokePaste. I don't think the creator of the team had published it, but if I had to speculate as to what I thought the items were, I would imagine this is Life Orb. I would imagine that this is Defensive Togekiss with Wakanberry, although it could also be like a mixed spread of Togekiss with Scopola and Superlux stuff, so you have a 50% chance of critting. That's a possibility. I would guess that this is Assault Vest. I would guess that this is either Safety Goggles or Citrus Berry. Rillaboom is either Assault Vest or, if Assault Vest is taken by Landorus, then Rillaboom would likely be carrying a Choice Band or a Miracle Seed. And Tapu Fini is probably has the leftovers. So I was looking at this team, and I was doing some exploring. I've been watching a lot of people play in the Players' Cup the last couple of days. I haven't been able to play myself. One, because I've been finalizing a team, and two, because I struggled with finding time with everything that was going on. So I took this shell of a team, and I found out that offensive water types are good right now. And Tapu Fini is usually run defensive currently. It still has a reasonable offensive stat and still has like really good bulk, obviously. But most of the time it felt like a lot of people were running this thing because it has Misty Surge and is bulky. It requires that this particular spread requires calm mind boosts to be offensive, like to actually be an offensive threat. So like this is still a fantastic Pokemon. I'm definitely not trying to discredit Tapu Fini, but I wanted to think about some other potential water types that could be very well suited to this metagame. And then I saw the Rotom Heat, and I started to think about Rotom Wash. Rotom Wash is a Pokemon that has historically been one of the best Pokemon in any given metagame. But with the addition of Rillaboom and with Venusaur being really popular, Rotom Wash fell on hard times a little bit. But right now specifically, if we take a look at the metagame, let's take a look at Rotom Wash. Fantastic matchup. Rotom Wash destroys Incineroar. Rotom Wash, very good matchup against Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini can hit you with fairy moves, which is kind of annoying, and it can call Mind Boost, but you have a Nasty Plot and Max Lightning, and you're going to deal a ton of damage. Glastrier, I would say that this matchup is what I like to refer to as chaotic neutral. You do resist 2 of its stabs. You resist its stab and you resist its main coverage move. Close combat is going to hit you for like a decent amount of damage and boost its attack. So this is like a chaotic neutral matchup. Basically, whoever has speed control is more than likely going to win. So that one is definitely chaotic neutral. Rillaboom, not so great of a matchup. Obviously, it's a really offensive grass type that resists both of your stabs. Regieleki, I don't know how I feel about this Pokemon against you. Obviously, because you're a water electric type, you are neutral to opposing electric attacks. I haven't really faced this one very much, so I don't know. Urshifu feels like a chaotic neutral matchup. Porygon, chaotic neutral, probably in your favor. I know some people have been running Eerie Impulse Porygon lately, so that potentially could get annoying. But if you set the rain with your first hit, the next hit's going to deal more damage. Landorus, fantastic matchup. This thing cannot touch you, outside of with Rock Slide or U-Turn, which are not going to do much damage. Grimmsnarl, this one is like, if they get up their light screen, they can kind of be annoying. So that's definitely like a problem, but it's not really that big of a deal. The trick set gets a little bit annoying, but and so do the Spirit Break drops, but you again can set up the rain after a Nasty Plot and kind of go from there. Amoonguss, not so good, obviously. Zapdos is like, again, chaotic neutral. Moltres, it's great. Heatran, it's good. Celesteela, it's good. Torkoal, it's good. Metagross is good. Rotom Heat, great. So as you can see, like, you match up reasonably well against a lot of the metagame. So going back to this team, I was like, okay, let's do a thought experiment here. Does Celesteela fit on this team? So I ended up arriving at this amalgamation. I changed the Rotom Heat to an Incineroar. I changed the Rillaboom to an Amoonguss. I changed the Tapu Fini to Rotom Wash. And I changed the Landorus to Celesteela. I ended up leaving Life Orb on Dragapult. I ended up giving this Power Herb for a really nice Meteor Beam interaction. I was running Citrus Berry here, Shuka Berry here, and I believe Koba Berry on Amoonguss. So this team, to me, felt like a very classic style of team that I personally enjoyed playing, which is like setup offense. Rotom oftentimes carries Nasty Plot. Celesteela, as we talked about, has Power Herb, Meteor Beam, which Power Herb is an item that allows 2-turn moves to complete in 1 turn. So Meteor Beam normally would take 2 turns. However, with the consumption of Power Herb, you get to do it in 1 turn, which is really good. And then Dragapult, I also had experimented with Dragon Dance. Togekiss has Follow Me, and Amoonguss has Rage Powder. So this was the general idea behind the team, is that I had Fake Out on Incineroar, I had Intimidate, I had Sleep with Spore. I had great switching potential. I had 3 ground. I had just good immunities in general on this team. Dragapult has 2 immunities. Togekiss has 2 immunities. Celesteela has 2 immunities. Incineroar has an immunity. Rotom Wash has an immunity. So I was a pretty good switching team overall. And I did play a little bit with the team, and I enjoyed it. I thought the team was really good. I had the potential to set up a couple of different ways to deal a bunch of damage. I had good offensive pressure with Celesteela Incineroar early game, and then it paved the way for a late game Rotom or Dragapult Dynamax. I could keep pace with the offensive teams. But after kind of reviewing it and looking at what was going on, the Togekiss and the Dragapult kind of felt like they were a little bit out of place to me. The Trick Room matchup wasn't super great. We have Taunt on Incineroar, and we have Rage Powder and Spore and Amoonguss is really slow. But outside of that, it feels like it's a little bit tricky of a matchup, especially considering that you end up forced to protect a lot and make you have to predict your opponent very well with this team, regardless of what your matchup is. But specifically against Trick Room, you had to really make sure that you were accurately predicting everything that your opponent was doing. There was no, if you made a mistake, you probably lost, because you can't really compete in Trick Room. You have good bulk on your, like, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but to me it felt like some of the really dedicated Trick Room teams would kind of dismantle you a little bit. So what does that mean, or where did I go from here? Well, I eliminated the Togekiss and the Dragapult, and I embraced the Trick Room myself, and I arrived here. So Celesteela, Glastrier, Porygon 2, Incineroar, Amoonguss, Rotom Wash. We have a Fire, Water, Grass core. We don't compound any types. Everything on the team is a uniquely typed Pokemon. We don't overlap too many weaknesses. We have 3 Pokemon weak to fighting, with only 1 resist, which is a little bit of a problem. But if we play well and utilize Amoonguss well, we should be okay. We only have, like I said, 1 grass weakness. We've got a couple of fire weaknesses here. Actually, we have 3 fire weaknesses, but we also have 2 fire resists. So that was the main thing that I was looking at doing here. I kept the Power Herb set. But I've been talking to some friends here before I finalize tomorrow, and it doesn't really affect my spread that much, but I may end up doing, I may end up running Assault Vest. It's going to depend personally for me as to how often I'm wanting to have Protect. Protect is a really, really good move, especially on a team like this. So modest max speed is really important. I ended up doing 68 EVs in speed. This was from my Raichu spread. It's not really applicable in this situation, because I was EVing for Nuzzle paralysis drops on speed, but I ended up leaving it at 68 for an even base 90. I put 1 point in both of these, like we talked about in our optimizing EV strategy, and I put the other 180 into HP. That was pretty straightforward. My Glastrier is really specific. So I don't have a minimum speed Glastrier, which is usually pretty important for a lot of different reasons. I'm looking over at my laptop here right now just to see what my Glastrier actually is. I figured it out. My Glastrier has a pretty high EV. It actually has a 28 IV. So if this thing were 0 at minimum, it would be 31, but instead we're 44. That's not necessarily a bad thing, and to be honest, it might actually be better or more beneficial to us to do something like this instead. Because the reason why I say that is because having the information that we are the fastest Glacier outside of Trick Room and that we're going to be going last inside of Trick Room is a big deal. And this potentially could avoid certain speed ties with certain things, like Amoonguss, for example. If their Amoonguss is not perfectly bred to be minimum speed, we're going to want to make sure that we know where we kind of stand speed wise. But the spread's pretty easy. I would normally go into I would normally have done a bunch of soft resets to try to get a 0 speed Glacier. I just don't have the time to do that, so I'm going to use this one. I think Protect is the good item, or a good move for this thing. High horsepower, close combat, and it's an ice type. So there's a couple of different schools of thought. Icicle Spear versus Icicle Crash. One's 100% accurate outside of Trick Room, one's not. Just kind of up to you. And the item, I could do a couple of different things with this. Some people run Assault Vest on this thing as well. You don't really need it because you have the coverage that it gets is a steel move, and you already have steel coverage. That being said, Assault Vest is a very good item, so that's fine if you wanted to run it. A couple of other options. Some people would like to run White Herb, which basically it restores all lowered stats to 0 when 1 is less than 0 single use. This is why this is basically going to reset 1 Intimidate. The first time that your opponent intimidates you, it's going to reset. The item that I think I'm going to end up running, I could run Life Orb if I wanted to be like offensive, but I think I'm actually going to end up running Lumberry. Lumberry will help me since I don't have Tapu Fini on the team. I think Lumberry is going to be really good at preventing opposing sleep from Amoonguss or things of that nature. Porygon. Let's talk about Porygon. Porygon is a Trick Room setter with a Violite. We have Tri Attack, Trick Room, and Recover. Those are basically standard at this point. Well, actually, Tri Attack is kind of a recent addition. So let me talk about Porygon here for just a second. Porygon is historically one of the bulkiest Pokemon in the game. Violite doubling its defensive stats. Usually you would run something like this, and you would go almost max or max, doesn't really matter. You would aim for your jumps. Let's see. Where's the first one? I forget. There it is. 76 to 156, and then 108. You could do this. This is a pretty common one, I believe. Some people... Let me see. Or 164 is the more common one. I wonder why. I guess it doesn't really matter too much. The defensive spreads on Porygon don't matter a ton unless you are specifically calcing for something. But this, like for example, this Modest one, they must have 1 or 2 Intimidate Pokemon on their team because they're running almost full Special Bulk. So that's kind of the logic there. But Porygon historically is a Pokemon that used to run Ice Beam and Thunderbolt. This is what people refer to as Bolt Beam coverage. It was very good coverage. It helped kind of chip away at some of the stickier things. You cover almost every type with this, at least for neutral damage. I don't think there's anything like Rotom Wash doesn't resist you. Rotom Heat, I guess, is one that doesn't get hit by this. But for the vast majority of Pokemon, you're at least going to be hitting them neutrally, if not super effectively. However, and Download Boost is really nice. So how Download works is when Porygon switches into play, you take the average defense and special defense of your opponent's Pokemon that are in play. Whichever of those 2 defenses is lower, you increase the stat of Porygon accordingly. So if your opponent's Pokemon are weaker special defensively, then you get a special attack boost, which is ideal. You want a special attack boost. But with the addition of with download boost, which has always been a thing, and the addition of Dynamax, it's actually advantageous in certain situations to Dynamax Porygon. With one activation or with one download boost, you actually turn into a pretty offensive Pokemon. 125 is nothing to scoff at on its own. You add a 1.5 times multiplier on that, basically the same stat as Rotom. So 1.5 times multiplier is a big deal. Sometimes you'll end up Dynamaxing the Duck and knocking things out. So that's kind of the logic of where Tri-Attack ended up being supplanted into back into the move pool, because you want to have access to stab in certain situations. You want to get your same type attack bonus that Tri-Attack will provide you as a normal type. Your last move could be a couple of different things. I've been seeing Eerie Impulse a lot more recently, and my experiences using Eerie Impulse on Raichu have made it pretty reliable. So I like Eerie Impulse. I think it's unique. Incineroar, I have had nothing but praises about Shuca Berry. I know a lot of people really like Citrus Berry or a Guave Berry. You can run either of those if you want, but Shuca Berry has been a game changer for me. Shuca Berry, specifically against the opposing Glacier matchup, is a nightmare for them. They cannot do anything to stop you from coming in and intimidating them. They can't KO you. You get Departing Shot out most likely, and from there, like they can't do anything. So that's, or you get the Intimidate off right away. They try to knock you out with Max Quake, and then you get the Parting Shot off, and it's just fantastic. Flare Blitz, Fake Out, Parting Shot, and Taunt have been my moves of choice lately. In theory, Incineroar could also carry the Safety Goggles as a potential second answer to Sleep, but I already have Lumberry, and I already have a Moongus, and I potentially have Max Lightning setting up Electric Terrain. I think I'm going to be okay, but we'll definitely find out. Incineroar, I like this spread. This is something that I personally had used. I might, this is too much. I might do a little creep in here. I might drop this by 1 point, and I might increase my attack or my speed stat by 1. The reason why is this little bugger right here. Speed ties you. And some spreads run a little bit of speed or a good amount of speed, but the vast majority of them don't run any. Why does that matter? Some Pokemon or some Grimmsnarl sets have Fake Out of their own, and if you're trying to set up Trick Room, you want to make sure that your Fake Out goes first against your opponents. So I think I might end up doing this. We'll find out tomorrow for sure. A Moongus, the bane of people's existence. A Moongus is a bit of a turd. This thing is really difficult to knock out. It's really difficult to deal with. Regenerator is a fantastic ability. This Pokemon restores a third of its maximum HP rounded down when it switches out. Koba Berry is really solid. We don't necessarily have a flying weakness per se. So we could run an Aqua Berry instead to help us live a fire move. That might end up being what I go with. Because as we talked about, we have 3 Pokemon weak to fire. We'll see. Flying types are really popular as well, so Koba Berry is a big deal, especially against the hyper offensive teams. So we could run Aqua Berry or Koba Berry. Both are great. Basically the same exact moveset on this Pokemon every time you use it. Protect, Rage Powder, Spore, and either Sludge Bomb, Energy Ball, Clear Smog, whatever. And then I like max HP. I think I'm gonna run this one minimum speed. I think I have one minimum speed in the game, and I want it physically defensive. And I'm just gonna aim for those jumps. I think. Let's see where the first one happens. I forget. 110. So 156 is the next one. Yeah, and then 100. So that's that's going to be probably my Moonga spread. It's pretty easy. This Pokemon is very bulky, especially off of a 114 HP stat. This thing's really hard. Basically, nothing one-shots it unless like certain flying moves will one-shot it in this particular situation because we're not running the flying resist berry. One other thing that some people do is they put some speed investment into this and then they give it Focus Sash. Kind of up to you. But this is where I'm going to end up using Aqua Berry or Cobble Berry. This is one of the best defensive pivots in the game. Rage Powder redirects single target attacks. Spore puts things to sleep. Protect, Regenerator to switch in and out. Very good. Rotom Wash, the last member of the team. Citrus Berry is going to be my item of choice because Rotom is a Pokemon that struggles a bit with its HP stat. And Thunderbolt, thank you. So you almost always run maximum speed. However, you're actually going to drop that down just a little bit because you want to have an even number, as we talked about in optimizing EV spreads. Citrus Berry procs when you're at half of your HP. You want to have an even number. Just a little tidbit there. I've been using 108. I don't know why. I think I used it for an even 120, so you outspeed things creeping on base 80. Or sorry, base 100. Things trying to creep on base 100. You'll outspeed, which is good. And then Modest Nature. Where's your jumps happen again? I forget. Right there. 36, 116. I'm going to go ahead and put 4 into both of these and smack that up to 148. You could go down to 140 and potentially like increase one of these. Up to you. I like the extra point into attack. I like even numbers. So yeah, this is the team. I think this is the team I'm going to run tomorrow. I'm like pretty confident. The only thing I might be changing up is some of the items. Like I said, Aqua Berry versus Cobble Berry, Shuka Berry versus Safety Goggles, and Power Herb versus Assault Vest. Celesteela does get access to a lot of really good coverage moves, specifically Flamethrower, and I think one more. I forget. That's really interesting, actually. Steel Roller. Oh, that's right. There's the... It's a physical move. It doesn't really work for us. One other thing that Rotom does get as coverage as well as a Ghost move, which might be something that I end up wanting, being that I don't hit any Ghost or Psychic types right now, but that's not a huge deal. So anyway, yeah, this is going to be a bulky, kind of Trick Room oriented, slower team. The primary Dynamax candidates on the team are Celesteela, Glastrier, and Rotom. Not necessarily in that order. If I had to rank them in order, Glastrier, Rotom, and Celesteela probably in that order. Porygon can also Dynamax. You've got a couple of different leads you can go with. You can lead Amoonguss or Incineroar plus Celesteela for Meteor Beam stuff to try to pick up a quick knockout on something that's setting up. You can go with Amoonguss, Glastrier. If you are against hard Trick Room and you're going to Dynamax early, you can go Amoonguss, Rotom to try to get off a nasty plot. Same thing's true with Incineroar. You can do Incineroar, Rotom, fake something out, set up a nasty plot. You can lead Porygon plus either of these two if you want to try to set up Trick Room. In my personal opinion, Incineroar Porygon is a bit stronger at setting up Trick Room, and the reason why is because Incineroar has the ability to pivot. Parting Shot allows you to switch out the turn after you set up Trick Room without having to hard switch and potentially put your Pokemon at risk. So Incineroar is definitely a really solid Pokemon to lead alongside Porygon for setting up Trick Room. However, you can also lead Rage Powder and Amoonguss and do the same thing. It's just going to be a little bit trickier because your opponent, you're going to have to hard switch your Amoonguss out the turn afterwards to not waste Trick Room turns, because one of the things that opponents will often do is they'll set up they'll try their best not to knock you out because they don't want to give you a free switch into your Trick Room Sweeper. So, for example, if I led Porygon plus Amoonguss and my opponent Dynamaxes on turn 1 and knocks out my Amoonguss and I get to set up Trick Room, that's pretty fantastic for me because I get a big momentum swing. Even though I lost a Pokemon, I get to bring in Glastrier for free, Dynamax my Glastrier, and start dealing damage that way. So definitely something to look out for there. This team is pretty special attack oriented, so I'll have to be mindful of that. But overall, I think this team is going to be good. I think it's going to be solid. I played a few matches on Showdown. I also have a lead of Incineroar plus Amoonguss for sleep. I can put some things to sleep if they don't have Tapu Fini, or if they're weak to if they're weak to sleep. I can fake something out, spore something, parting shot, spore again, get into my sweeper. There's a lot of different things I can do. So I'm definitely a big fan of this. So yeah, this video took a little bit longer than I was hoping for. I was hoping to not have to take as long as I did here, but this type of video or this type of content I personally find really useful when I stumble upon it, when other Pokemon players kind of talk through their team development of how they arrived where they arrived. And this, even though I don't get to use Raichu, which Raichu is one of my favorite Pokemon, this composition of Pokemon I'm really excited to use. Offensive teams are really flashy and really fun to use, but my inexperience playing Pokemon at a high level kind of deters me a little bit away from those because you really have to anticipate what your opponent's going to do and get their lead right. If you get the lead right, you're in a fantastic position. If you get the lead wrong, you probably lose the game. And this team is a bit closer to what I personally enjoy using. Bulky Pokemon in general, good switching potential, good type synergy. I like this. The other team that I would have considered running would have been the Rain team if I had figured it out in time, because I like Kingdra and Politoed a lot. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. It is late here. I'm gonna wrap this up and go to bed, and then hit the ground running tomorrow. Hopefully, try to get as many games done tomorrow as I can. But that's gonna do it for me. I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope this content wasn't too boring or dragging for you. I just wanted to kind of showcase how I moved through the different stages of team building. So I hope to maybe see you all in chat tomorrow if I decide to stream. Otherwise, I'll be coming up with videos as quickly as I can. So have a fantastic night, everybody.